Hey friends, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back, and if it's your first time here, then welcome. You know, many people are thinking about new construction still in 2023, so I'm here to give you an update of how that's been looking recently. Hi, I'm Margaret Jackson with the Professional Agent Group at Keller Williams Realty. You know, there are some great opportunities out there, but definitely some things to bear in mind and know about in today's market. So we've been in a rising market, you know that. We've had solid home appreciation and low interest rates for a long time, and that's changed from last year into this year. So right now in new construction, we're seeing some communities though selling out of lots again as soon as they're releasing them, and then those graduated price increases with each release being considered. Now, many out-of-state buyers are still interested in the Tampa Bay area, and that is putting a lot of interest and a lot of pressure on pricing. So the last few years, there's been a lot less intense focus on some of the points and the parts of the contracts that are currently probably still the most important things this year. Pre-contract documents and then the contract documents. So what's included in that? Well, typically there's a bunch of information in there. Often 20 or 30 pages about things like what landscaping you're going to get with the property, and that the title company they're going to use is one that the builder owns. These are the things that we talked about on last year's video about new construction too. It will talk about things like if there's additional taxes because of a CDD as part of living in the community. You'll find information on that. Community and homeowners associations, deed restrictions that you're going to abide with, all that good stuff. Now, increasingly important, read those deed restrictions before you sign the contract, because if there's anything in there that you can't agree to, then you don't need to sign any of the rest of the documents. Flood insurance, that's another big one. We've seen a lot of changes in insurance in the Tampa Bay market and in Florida, so you are going to want to understand that. It's flood determination is set by FEMA. Those flood maps sometimes take a little bit of time to get updated when there's new construction going on, and we've seen people that were told they were in a no flood zone needing to pay for flood insurance for a couple of years till FEMA got around to changing the flood determination. Now, structural things. Do you want to flip the house the other way around? Do you want to change bathroom layouts, heights of doors? Do you want to add tray ceilings? All those things will be in there as well. We're definitely seeing a shift in some of that. We're seeing buyers being much more cautious and price sensitive to some of the options that they're picking, and maybe that's just a normal part of the increase in the house prices. Now, there'll also be information about any design studio and what that currently looks like. You know, for a while we weren't seeing anybody going to design studios because they were closed during COVID. Since then, we've seen a lot of them reopen that option, but some builders now are staying with offering design packages that they've picked out, where they're grouping together things that blend well together and are still considered current, and that's a way that the builder's also able to control pricing a little bit too. So that purchase agreement document, that's generally about 70 or 80 pages, and right at the top it's going to tell you that it is a legally binding contract, and that in the event of a dispute, you agree that any dispute between you and the builder will be resolved typically by binding arbitration, and that you are waiving the right to proceed in court with a jury trial. Now, that's pretty much on every builder contract that we see. But always, always, always read anything that's in uppercase in the contract, and even more so if it's in bold, it's there for a reason. Right, so your purchase price, the appraisal, your deposit, those will be some of the next things. Now, notice that as soon as you've signed it, typically it's going to state, and I'll give you an example, quote, "Buyer cannot terminate the buyer's obligations under the agreement without being deemed in default. In the event that an appraisal of the property is less than the total purchase price, the buyer will be obligated to pay the total purchase price or be subject to the paragraph entitled Default and Remedies." So, when this house is being built, right now we're back to homes being built in about 8 months or so, but if it doesn't appraise, you are agreeing that you're going to pay the difference, the appraisal gap between what the house you agreed to buy it at and what it appraises at. If you fail to close, then that deposit that you put down when you went under contract, which could be as much as 10 or 15% of the home value, is at risk. And the majority of contracts are going to state that you are not getting that back. And we do see some builders enforcing that and keeping it. Now, you're typically going to be required to get approved through the builder's home lender, their affiliated lender. Now, you aren't required to close with them because they can't force you to do that, but there are some advantages, and one of them being that if their lender actually screws up, then they've got to accept that. But if you've gone with an outside lender and they screw up, then that's on you, unless the builder is very forgiving, and they aren't always. You know, though, one of the things that we're seeing along with that, what we're seeing last year, we knew lenders in new construction were offering 12-month rate locks and things like that. We're not really seeing that now in 2023, but what we are seeing are concessions with some builders offering money towards buyers' design centre choices, structural options, rate buy downs or closing costs, which is helping people to make that commitment and make the move. And we've just gone under contract with one builder where our buyer is getting $25,000 towards those things, but that varies from model to model and even lot to lot. And the good news is we're also back to that 8-month build time as well. Now, as soon as you're under contract, you need to get a conditional loan approval within your first 30 to 45 days. You know, the house isn't even started yet, and it's important that you know that once you have that conditional loan approval, then there'll be a paragraph in the writing that's going to tell you something like this. Upon termination of the conditional loan approval contingency, buyer will no longer have the right to receive a return of the deposit pursuant to this provision, even if buyer is subsequently unable to satisfy any conditions necessary to fund the loan, or buyer's unable to obtain final loan approval. So what that does mean is once you're through that contingency, you're not getting your deposit back, whether the house appraises, whether or not the interest rate goes down or up, and whether or not your employment situation changes for any reason. And those things do, but the contract still stands. Now, we've just had a very large shift in the mortgage rate this year, and while we don't know what's going to happen ahead, many economists are starting to predict rates beginning to fall in 2024 to a more moderate again. We do always recommend that you get an independent home inspection. There's usually a section that allows for that, but more, it does typically say that whatever the home inspector finds, it's not a basis for you to cancel the purchase agreement or to delay closing. Next, there'll be a section about additional provisions in the contract. Typically, that's going to be telling you, for example, that the seller's agent in the model home only represents the seller. Now, we talk about this all the time. They do not represent the buyer at all and don't take any claims made by the sales agents as facts. If they're not in writing and signed by everybody, it doesn't exist. Now, most of the time, everything goes according to plan and everyone's happy, and we want that for you too, and we'd love to be part of your journey. And reach out if we can help you with anything. See you later.